Honorable Mayor Robert Oderkirk presiding. We will open with an honor guard from the Cub Scout Troop 256, headquartered in Shorewood. So we're in for a treat and a privilege. Followed by the invocation from their chaplain, if you will, Mr. Matthew Ryden. So we will start with the presentation of colors, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the invocation of prayer. Which flag is it? That one. Yeah.
Color guard attention. Color guard quarter march. Salute. Color guard hope. Ready, face. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard about face. Quarter march.
Let's pray. Dear God, you have promised to give wisdom to those who ask for it. Please give these council members wisdom so that our city may prosper and enjoy peace. Amen.
Amen. That's it.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Oderkirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudron.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda under Mayor is a proclamation honoring Annie Tibbet, Claire Blotnick, Ellie Blotnick, and Steve Blotnick, followed by Joliet Fire Department presenting a life-saving award.
Come up, ladies. What's your father? You gonna come up? Proclamation. Whereas on February 16th, 2020, a fire broke out in the home located at 609 Tana Lane in Joliet, Illinois. Whereas, as fate would have it, Steve Blotnick, Claire Blotnick, Ellie Blotnick, and Annie Tibbet were driving down Tana Lane when they noticed the garage was on fire. Whereas, Steve Blotnick immediately pulled over, drove back to the house to investigate. Whereas, with quick action, Claire, Ellie, and Annie called 911 and alerted the neighborhood of the issue. Whereas, Steve went to the front door to gain access to the residence and without hesitation was able to get two residents safely out of the house. Whereas, fortunately, no one was injured in the fire, and in addition, 3 family cats were saved by the Joliet firefighters. Now whereas I, Robert Oderkirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, Illinois, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, would like to recognize the courageous action of Steve Blotnick, Claire Blotnick, Ellie Blotnick, and Annie Tibbet, and congratulate them on a job well done.
Yes.
And Mayor, Council, thank you for this evening. On behalf of the Joliet Fire Department, we'd like to issue Steve Blotnick, Claire Blotnick, Ellie Blotnick, and Annie Tibbet the Joliet Fire Department Citizen Life Saving Award. in recognition of the selfless act of rendering life-saving aid to others in the time of need, awarded on this third day of March 2020.
Let me get a picture.
I know. All right, thank you very much. I just think it's something that comes natural. I think it'd be awesome if everybody instinctually would do the same thing. It was not, everybody probably would have done the same thing, or somebody would have done the same thing, but really all that goes to the girls there for their awareness. Some of the programs that you have with our schools that make them aware of that, for to look at something, notice something, take action, tell me, hey, look in your rearview mirror, I think that garage is on fire. You know, come back, and I left the truck without telling them what to do, and sure enough, right away, calling 911, calling the neighbor, helping the elderly lady out. Here comes Ellie running up toward the fire to help take her down the driveway while I go get the other gentleman. So it's really the kids, the selfless act of the kids. I'd like to honor them more than me. I shouldn't, you know, they did a great job. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, do a picture of your for the city Facebook page. Did you see that picture this morning? I know. It's Terry.
All the right things. Good job. Thank you.
I just got here in time.
Next on the agenda are Mayor Odekirk appointments. First tonight, the mayor is recommending Christopher O'Hara be appointed to the Fireman's Pension Fund Board of Trustees. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, the mayor is recommending the following to be appointed to the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. John Dillon, Quinn Adamowski, Mary Jaworski, Jim Rolfe, John Grueling, Brad Staub, Arvid Johnson, Judy Mitchell, Teresa Rouse, Ralph Schultz, John Chow, Terry Darcy, John Bays, Garland Mays, Veronica Gloria, J.D. Ross, and Lester Brown. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? Seeing none, we'll move under council committee reports. First is Public Safety Committee report.
Okay, the
Hold on,
public,
Chris, hold on. Did you want to speak on an agenda item? You got to step forward. I can't hear you, sir.
Is it
I'm sorry.
maybe
That's
under
okay.
public hearing?
Oh, there'll be a public hearing on that. We'll call for that in a couple minutes. Sorry.
it's all right. Public Safety Committee met this evening in the executive conference room, committee consisting of Councilman Don Duck Dickinson, Larry Hugg, and myself, Jan Quillman, the chair. Also present was the Chief of Police, Al Rochner, the Chief of the Fire Department, Greg Blasky, Deputy Chief Michael Batis, Deputy Chief Mark Reed, Dave Brainerd from the CTIS Committee, Steve Jones, City Manager, and yeah, that concludes who was present. Also, we talked about Axon in-camera solutions, and I'm going to have David Brainerd come up and discuss that this evening. And then after that, I'm going to have Mark Reed discuss the LPR cameras, which are license plate recognition, which is something for information, which we've been well needed, and I wanted both of those to come up here to explain the details on this, so there's no question.
Good evening, Council. We have about approximately 175 cars out there right now, squads that patrol on 2 shifts. And right now we have about 30 of those cars with in-car camera solutions that are extremely dated. We have really need to get them all lit up with cameras, and that's really what this project is about. In addition to that, the technology allows us now to put these in-car cameras in there, but then also to allow the data from those to be transferred from the cars to our wireless environment and then immediately transferred up in the cloud, so we get out of the data storage business. And that's what this deal is about. Axon is part of a more larger framework that we're using here within the city. We put all digital evidence into the Axon cloud. That includes still pictures, movies, anytime we do interviews and whatnot. So it's a complete solution, and it's going to allow us to capture things correctly and also holistically, which we weren't doing prior to that. Any questions?
And the budget, it's in the budget. The
It
money's
is
in the
definitely
budget.
budgeted. Yeah, we're all budgeted for it.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll let
Deputy Chief Mark Reed.
Mike Batis.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening. The second item discussed at Public Safety tonight was LPRs, license plate recognition. It is a standalone camera that is either self-powered or powered by solar that takes stills and not video of license plates of vehicles passing by. More importantly, that information can be cataloged and then searched and is a usable tool for our detectives and our patrol officers out on the street. In the past, this technology had been out of our reach due to cost, but now advances in technology and open sourcing of software has made this available to us. This also basically gives us tools to combat amber alerts, silver alerts, that all that data can be loaded into these cameras and they're flagged when this happens. To give you just a quick example of what this can do, Cobb County, Georgia, which is near the company that we're going with for this pilot program, it's comparable in size, about 750,000 people. They had a 6-month, 5-year average of 147 burglary of motor vehicles in a certain area by Six Flags. They planted 13 flock cameras in that area, and in a 6-month reduction, they went from 138 to 50 burglary of motor vehicles. Quite a substantial drop, 64%. And just on data, we plan on having a 60-day retention period in our pilot program, which can be adjusted either way, depending on how our pilot program goes. And the standalone camera, just for your information, is about the size of a lunchbox. Are there any questions?
Question?
No, it's more informational for everybody, so. Thank you, sir.
Very good.
Thank you.
Then in the request from Mayor last night about the coronavirus, the Chief Blasky gave us an overview of what he's going to present tonight for precautions. And did I miss anything? That concludes our report.
Public Service Committee report.
The Public Service met yesterday here at City Hall in the Executive Conference Room. On the committee and in attendance were myself, Councilwoman Gavin, and Councilman Morris. Also in attendance was the City Manager, Steve Jones, Director of Public Works and his staff, Jim Trizna, and Director of Utilities, Allison Swisher, and members of her staff. We had a short agenda, a lot of housekeeping, moreover than anything. 2 contracts were looked at, vetted, and found to be in order. One is a request for professional services and engineering, the widening of Essington Road, which will be from Jefferson to Black. Anybody who drives that knows that needs to be widened. That you have a little tiny turn lane in the middle, and so there's always some near misses there. Under change orders, pay estimates, and final payments, we looked at them and found them to be in order. And then under ordinance and resolutions, there were 3 ordinances for 3 different areas that will be participating in the road rebuilding, reconstruction, and improvements of storm sewers and such. And we have to create an SSA area because it's a shared cost by the residents, so we had to go through the formality of doing that. But again, we'll move forward on improving our roads each year. And we did look over the 5-year vehicle replacement program and found that to be in order as far as the list of vehicles that would be needed. Did I miss anything of importance, folks?
I think you got it all.
Terry, nothing? Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you.
Ad hoc City Manager Search Committee report.
This is giving a report. Yeah, essentially, we met last week, was it Friday?
Was a week before. It was a week ago Friday.
Myself, Councilwoman Quillman, Councilman Turk. Councilwoman Gavin was also present along with staff. We were at an impasse about what to do. Councilman Turk suggested that we hire an outside firm to start the search process again. I advocated just moving forward. You had, I think, I said there were 3 candidates that I personally would have voted for, but there were 2 finalists. They were asked to take a test. I certainly don't want to give the impression that neither one of them did poorly on that test, because that would be incorrect. And then Councilwoman Quillman, you were kind of stuck in between. So by agreement, we put the matter on the agenda tonight for the council to vote on, with the idea that if the council does decide to move forward with a new search, we don't delay it a whole nother 2 or 3 weeks, that we can move on tonight. So that was the committee meeting from last week.
I show no other reports. Under consent agenda, approval of the minutes. It's recommended the minutes of the combined council meeting held on February 18th, 2020 stand approved as recorded. Council Memo 111-20, position vacancies. It's recommended the city manager be authorized to fill 1 firefighter paramedic position and 1 budget officer position and any subsequent vacancies which may occur. Council Memo 112-20, regular payroll for December 20th, 2019 through January 2nd, 2020, $3,545,095.62. Council Memo 113-20, special payroll for January 17th, 2020, $2,158,659.73. Council Memo 114-20, regular payroll for January 3rd through January 16th, 2020, $3,461,869.91. Council Memo 115-20, regular payroll for January 17th through January 30th, 2020, $3,746,984.02. And Council Memo 116-20, regular payroll for January 31st through February 13th, 2020, $3,595,672.05. It's recommended said payrolls be approved. Is there a motion to approve said consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Motion carried. Under agenda items, Council Memo 119-20, motion to approve an executive search for city manager for the city of Joliet through a consulting firm.
So moved.
Second.
Krista, before you call the roll, you know, again, it's been talked about for about 8 months now. I'm not going to rehash or go back and dredge up quotes of who said what back in June or why they were doing this. The bottom line is, when the move was made to fire Mr. Shanahan, It was a mistake. It set the city off course. We were on an upward trajectory for over 4 years. But beyond the mistake, the idea of firing an interim city manager and having no idea who's going to replace him was asinine. That's what's happened here, and the hole keeps getting dug deeper and deeper. So we went through a search, a nationwide search. We vetted 25 candidates. When we did this a year and a half or 2 years ago, we had 88 candidates. Should tell you what you've done to the candidate pool. I don't know who would leave a community, pick up and move their family to come here and work after what they saw what happened to Mr. Shanahan. It's not going to get better with another search. We just wasted money and wasting time. You had 2 finalists. Councilwoman Reardon, you wanted a personality test. I asked each and every one of you in executive session if these were your final 2 candidates. All 5 of you said yes, it was. You gave the test. The candidates performed on the test. One of the candidates did extremely well on the test, and now you're choosing not to hire that person. It makes no sense. So I'm just urging the council, it's not going to get better. Pull the Band-Aid off, hire a city manager so we can start moving forward.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm just going to be brief. I kind of half expected to see Bill Murray here tonight because this feels like Groundhog Day again and again and again. I don't see how we're going to pull any better pool of applicants. The consulting firm that originally was considering taking it on back in the summer had said that they doubted very highly there'd be a lot of qualified candidates. We went through the process. Like you said, we had a diminished number of 25, of which 6 met the city ordinance, and it was narrowed immediately by your committee, by the committee, down to the 5 you presented to us, and the majority brought it down to 2. So I'm not sure why we want to spend more taxpayer dollars on Groundhog Day. So.
Any comments? Yes.
Sure. So the discussion seemed to be, this is the only job that we, the city council, hire. Want to make sure we get the right candidate. There was conversation in closed session about opening it up to a larger search because we did not use a company that just searches, and with that, I feel we should and make sure we get the right candidate for the job.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve Council Memo 119-20, which is a motion to approve an executive search for the city manager for the city of Joliet through a consulting firm. Councilman Mudron?
Yes.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Well, do we even know what consulting firm's going to be hired and how much the cost is going to be?
I can address that. Yesterday when I did the presentation, I indicated that this was to give a signal that the council was interested in going to a search firm. There were some budget ranges that were attached, that are attached to this memo. We weren't going to go through a whole process without knowing whether the council was even going to go in that direction. If you do vote to approve this motion, in effect, what we'll do is we'll vet, we'll check references, we'll bring back a specific recommendation for you. So at this point, it's the concept of whether you're moving forward as opposed to who you'd be moving forward with.
Well, I don't mind moving forward, but I sure don't want to spend a lot of taxpayer money. So if we can get this down, I had hoped maybe we could do it in-house again, with all the contacts that have been out there. I would rather try to do it in-house first, and I'm not opposed to going back out and looking at it because we really do need the right candidate. But until I know what's going on, I can't vote for any monies to be spent at this time. So I'll vote no.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
I just want to say that I think we went through this process. The candidates that we did have, we narrowed down to the last 2. I think we went through that. I felt confident in that candidate. I would have given my vote to that candidate. But if it is the will of this council that we open it back up again, I have no problem with that. Just want to make sure that we get the right person for the city of Joliet. So Having said that, I'll vote aye.
Councilman Hug,
In honor of Puxatawny Phil, I vote no.
Councilman Morris.
Yeah, I just want to get an idea of who is going to be, the right candidate. I thought that was what the personality test was going to help us decide, out of the two. So we're going to open it back up. And also I thought that we was going to do it in-house, and it still was going to be a wide enough search to get the right candidate, because we should have went to a search firm from the very beginning. It just seemed like it was being dragged out for some reason, and I don't know what that is, and I'm sure nobody's going to tell me what that is. But I just thought that we would settle on one of the two that was made the finalists. And I just don't know what the right candidate is then. So what are we looking for to be the right candidate? I mean, is that something that the search firm needs to know from us, the council? What are we looking for? And I know we've given, I don't know if we did or not, but I'm just kind of confused, kind of lost, because we went through all these interviews in the evening, taking up you all's precious time to be with your families, to interview these people, and then we get back to square one again, And again, I want us to get the right candidate, and I thought that's what, we were getting the best for, what the council agreed to. Again, I'm just lost. I vote no.
Motion carried 5-3. Council Memo 120-20, 5 years vehicle replacement program. It's recommended Council Memo 120-20 be approved.
So move.
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under licenses and permit applications, Council Memo 121-20, transfer of a Class B liquor license located at 2771 Black Road, Fireman Ted's Sports Bar and Grill. It's recommended the Class B liquor license for Fireman Ted's Sports Bar and Grill be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motion and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under public hearings, first is Council Memo 123-20, a public hearing for and request for approval of an ordinance establishing the 2020 Joliet Special Service Area Number 1, Logan Avenue, 2nd Avenue to 500 feet south. This is a public hearing, so comments would be in order for this.
Would anyone like to speak on this issue?
Seeing none, let the record show the hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 123-20, which is an ordinance establishing the 2020 Joliet Special Service Area Number 1, Logan Avenue?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo 124-20, which is a public hearing for and request for approval of an ordinance establishing the 2020 Joliet Special Service Area Number 2, Salem Avenue, West Jefferson Street to Marion Street. This is a public hearing, so comments are in order at this time.
Would anyone like to speak on this issue?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Keith Kotowitz. I reside at 9 Salem Drive within the service area of the special project. And I'm asking the council to review the plans for this area. There's commercial buildings that are on this street as well, namely on the east side of the street, the Dollar General and Aaron's business there, they have a exit onto Salem Drive, and we've encountered many issues with semi-trailers coming out of that onto the residential street, which I believe also in turn has deteriorated the street out there. And I would like the council to consider eliminating that access point onto Salem Drive. And within the last 30 days, my fiance was awoken at 5 a.m. by one of the truck drivers that could not make a turn coming out onto Salem Drive. Now, trucks should not be traveling down this street, and if we eliminate that avenue for them to exit that way, we won't have this problem. This truck not only went over the parkway, the sidewalk, but into my front yard with this 18-wheeler semi, causing damage to my property as well as my neighbor's property. So we're asking the council to consider the layout of the street and eliminate that access point onto the street.
Jim Trizna, are you familiar with that intersection?
Yeah, we are.
Had you gotten complaints about truck traffic prior to tonight?
I have not. I've not got any complaints at all. Obviously, there's a couple businesses there. There's the Dollar General, like you said. And it used to be a Walgreens over there, obviously. What's the new business there? There's another business there also.
Aaron's rental.
Yeah. No, we have not gotten complaints on that. We can try to work with the business. It's very kind of difficult to take away access points they've had, but we could try to work with the owner out there and see if they'd be willing to kind of to eliminate it. Obviously, they come in generally coming in off of Jefferson, which they generally do. Yeah, we have not. To be honest, we have not heard any complaints of that. I've never heard a complaint about this.
And this was documented with the Joliet Police Department. We did call them out, and I do have a report number that was filed from the latest incident, but this is an ongoing thing, and like I said, truck traffic should not be permitted on this residential street. It should be contained to Jefferson Street.
Chief, I know we have a truck unit, traffic unit. Could you have someone keep an eye on that location? Because he's right, trucks are forbidden on residential streets.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have him review the last report too and make sure something's done on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item?
Hello, my name is Sharice Early. I am Keith's fiance. I was the one that was awoken by the truck driver at 5 o'clock in the morning to ask me to move my vehicle so that he could make his turn and run over my lawn and leave indents in the ground. And you can imagine I was not a very happy camper in the morning, so I did call the police out. This, unfortunately, like he said, is not the first time. I have a picture from this morning where I was trying to come and pull down onto the street and park in front of my home. I was blocked and had to sit there and wait for a truck to turn, because the way that it goes, the truck drivers only come in from Jefferson Street over there, but it's like a one-way, so they were forced to come out onto Salem Drive. There's no other alternative for them to swing. So the way it's set up right now, if we don't block that off, they have no choice but to come onto our road. I mean, it's not something that truck enforcement can, rearrange how semi is, it has to move. But like I said, literally this morning, I have a picture on my phone of it. I've got video of the guy from 5:30 in the morning. There are police reports that have been filed. So it is definitely an issue that I know not only myself and our residents, but other neighbors on my street have had to deal with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, let the record show that this hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 124-20, an ordinance establishing the 2020 Joliet Special Service Area Number 2, Salem Avenue?
So moved.
Excuse me, Ms. Mayor.
Yes.
So Steve or Jim or Ms. Mayor, will we, if we approve this, would that have any bearings on you seeing what their issues?
No, we're going to take a look at the access points in and out of there either way. I mean, whether we get the building code or not, we still look at it. It sounds like there's an issue going on, so we'll take a look at that and see if we can work with the business there.
Because it sounds like it's just something that's been going on.
Yeah, like I said, I've not heard complaints, but I believe the people. I'm sure they had a police report. I'm sure that happened.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I might just ask one question to Jim. Jim, if there is a solution, and I'm saying if you block off Salem, I mean, what happens? They just drive over the curve and keep going, or they don't have enough room to spin around and come out? I mean, what would that solution look like outside of?
Well, we're gonna have to look at that, Bettye. You know,
Okay.
we haven't citizens have really heard of the problem, so we'll have to look at that and see if there's a better way they can, you know, enter and exit, you know, to make the deliveries.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe if it's in wee hours, maybe they can back in. As a side note, there's not much traffic at 5 in the morning, not too much traffic at 5 in the morning.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks, Jim.
There was a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is Council Memo 125-20, which is a public hearing for and request for approval of an ordinance establishing the 2020 Joliet Special Service Area Number 3, Mason Avenue, from Wilcox Street to Robb Street. This is a public hearing, so comments would be in order at this time. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, let the record show that the hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 125-20, which is an ordinance establishing the 2020 Joliet Special Service Area Number 3, Mason Avenue?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving on, under ordinances, Council Memo 127-20, an ordinance establishing a date for public hearing and convening a joint review board for a tax increment financing district. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted, scheduling the public hearing for June 2nd, 2020 at 6:30 Joliet City Hall.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 128-20, an ordinance amending the 2020 annual budget for the city of Joliet. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Motion carried. Under resolutions, Council Memo 129-20, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the County of Will concerning the preparation of a homeless strategic plan. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 130-20, a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for the Juniper Street, Richmond Street roadway project. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 131-20, a resolution appropriating funds for the Phase 2 engineering services for the Essington Road roadway widening improvements project. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudron?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Motion carried. Under bids and contracts, award of contracts, Council Memo 133-20, award a professional services agreement for the Phase 2 engineering services for the Essington Road roadway widening improvements project. Council Memo 134-20, approve a professional services agreement for the 2020 sanitary sewer investigation and rehabilitation program. And Council Memo 135-20, award a contract for computer hardware to CDWG. It's recommended Council Memos 133-20 through 135-20 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Amendments, change orders, and payments. Council Memo 136-20, approve change order number 1 for the Belmont Interceptor Replacement Project. Council Memo 137-20, approve change order number 1 and payment estimate number 4 and final for the Juniper Street, Richmond Street roadway project. Council Memo 138-20, approve payment estimate number 2 and final for the City of Joliet vaulted sidewalk replacement project. It's recommended Council Memos 136-20 through 138-20 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
And motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudron.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is the city manager's report.
Okay. Krista, could you put that slide up? I would like to give the council an update of our recent special meeting that occurred at the Plan Commission, which, as the slide comes up, you'll see the North Point development. Obviously, this is something that's coming to the City Council at your next meeting on March 17th, and I wanted to kind of take the opportunity to just go through this in a summary format and also see if there are any questions you have at this point in advance of that meeting. We do have some representatives from North Point here as well who could answer any questions. And we all know this is a highly emotional issue, very complex issue, and we want to make sure that City Council has any questions, any issues, any rumors dispelled, perhaps, you know, at an early point before we get to that actual meeting. As you probably know, the Plan Commission did have a unanimous recommendation, 8-0, to recommend approval of this project to the City Council. The project plan behind you is what was presented as an exhibit to the annexation agreement. It consists of about 1,300 total acres. Some of the aspects of the plan, you know, the actual agreement, the written legal document that'll be presented to you, that was presented to the Plan Commission, has some things in here, I think, that mitigate some of the issues, some of the concerns, some of the things that will allow this project perhaps to get a little bit more thought with regard to mitigating some of the impacts that have been talked about. For instance, one of the things that has been a very valid concern amongst residents, not only those outside of the city, but in the city, has been the whole issue of truck traffic. The way that this particular agreement is set up and the way that this plan is established is that all transportation by truck will be within what's called a closed loop system. Now, what the heck's a closed loop system? Well, it's a system that basically doesn't allow trucks in or out of this site, or would not allow it in or out of the site except at 2 locations. And that would be basically Arsenal Road that exists at present, or the future Hobart Road. There'd be no permits issued, no development permits, building permits issued unless that closed loop system was intact. And there has been some speculation about, well, what if the litigation that's ongoing with Elwood doesn't allow that southern access point? The developer would be required to provide a closed loop system in another location. So simple as that. No permits are issued if there is not a system by which truck traffic goes directly into the intermodal and then directly out onto the interstate. Should point out that you see a lot of area to the east of the Joliet site, which is the village of Manhattan. The language of the agreement also talks about the fact that if there's any industrial development that would occur within North Point's ownership, that it would also be tied into this closed loop system. So it's not a situation where, for instance, if this plan was approved, you know, that would be closed loop, but everything between here and Manhattan could somehow be accessing roadways. That's not the way we've addressed our annexation agreement. There are no local incentives being offered. There's no TIF, no tax abatements, no fee waivers proposed. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Within this agreement, there are development contributions that North Point would be required to make to the city of Joliet. And we're calling them community enhancement contributions, funds that would be utilized for purposes as established by the city council. The agreement you'll see will have some examples, you know, some things that are good for the community, some fixed assets, improvements of things that we've talked about for years and haven't been able to get to. So it's not a question of, you know, the money going in the developer's pocket. It's exactly the opposite. The agreement calls for $2 million of development contributions to be given to us upon execution of the agreement, and then over time, 33 cents per square foot would be assessed to all building permits. So this would basically, you know, increase this time. If there was a short build-out time period for this development, obviously that money would come quicker. If it was something where the market took a while to absorb, it would be a longer time period. And with about 16 million square feet that's within this plan's current estimate, that would add about another 5.3 million to those community enhancements. In addition to that, there's a requirement that there be a 15-acre site dedicated, no cost to the city, for a future fire police training facility. One of the things that North Point has done in other developments, and they would potentially do here, is have the goal of coming up with about 20% manufacturing or non-distribution. Obviously, some of the image that we have with the warehouses is that, you know, they're low-paying jobs. There isn't room for advancement. North Point's bringing a different, or would bring a different proposal forward. In fact, one thing that would help encourage that is if there were office uses, manufacturing uses, or, you know, we'll call them sales tax generators, some of the e-retail, that 33 cents that we're imposing upon them would not apply. So it's a way to, you know, really kind of have that lure to get them to meet that 20% or even greater than 20% goal of some of those additional uses. And obviously, having a more diversified economy in some of these buildings would be good for the city. I'll point out that the design that we're talking about, and some of you have already been down to the Kansas City facility, some of you will be going, the design of their park is really, it's almost like a town center. It's a planned community. So you have trails, you have open space corridors, you have employee amenities, and it's generally a different look to a park. It's not, you know, the big buildings and curb lines without a lot of landscaping, without a lot of style. It's something that really does integrate all the buildings in together, integrates those buildings in with the community. We have trails in Medellin, we have Route 66 trails. I mean, the proposed plan will have a lot of things that will tie into the community in addition to serving the employees of the park. As you all know, just based upon some of the industrial development that's occurred within Centerpoint, our codes are pretty sophisticated with regard to building design and what's required. They would meet or exceed those particular standards. And probably lastly, I'll point out the fact that even though it's a closed loop system, there would be access points for employees, for fire trucks, for other vehicles to get into the park. Before any annexation were to occur, and keep in mind this is an annexation agreement, so if the city does approve this on the 17th, it doesn't mean the property is in the city, it just means there's an agreement that still has to have a number of criteria met, and one of those would be traffic studies that would then be utilized to analyze all the impacts on any of the roadways that would be utilized by employees, by vendors, by anyone else accessing the park. And a requirement is that for every 3 million square feet of development, that study has to be redone. So it's not a once and done study where over 4 or 5 years if traffic patterns change or technology changes that somehow we're just left with the results. This is something, it would be a living park, and obviously having continual follow-up to make sure everything is being done properly, making sure if there are intersection improvements, widening projects or anything, that would be a requirement. So those are the highlights. The folks from North Point are here, and I'd ask perhaps come to the dais. I'm not sure if council has any question, but if you do, I mean, this is one of those opportunities where they could address those before this comes back to you, or if there are questions or concerns you have, and you haven't gone to Kansas City yet, these are the sort of things that you could ask for a little bit of a clarification on before you get down there. So don't know if there are any questions, but I figured this is a good opportunity to just get it out here for discussion if necessary. This is Thomas George from North Point.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Steve. You talked about the $2 million to the city up front, and then it was projected $5.3 million as it develops. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I spoke about that in my State of the City speech. What I didn't talk about was projected tax revenue. Do we have any breakdown of what the city would get like over a 10 or 20 year period? And more importantly, what will county government gets or the school districts from this?
Well, the end user will determine the net tax. Generally, a rule of thumb with industrial, particularly in Jackson Township, a building generates about $1 a square foot annually in property tax. So a 1 million square foot building, $1 million. Of that, the city, and I'm looking at our finance director, we get about 18% of that, Jim?
Yes.
So the remaining amount literally goes to all the other taxing bodies. So a 1 million square foot building, $180,000 in property tax per year. That doesn't count things like utility tax, which depending upon how high an energy user, that could generate additional funds. If it's an e-retailer, you know, the Amazons of the world or people along those lines, there could be sales tax generated, along with building permit fees, tap-on fees, et cetera. So, you know, the only real fixed amount, or I guess the only amount that we could really say is for sure is that $1 a square foot, which will go up over time. If someone came in with a heavier office or manufacturing building, that number would be higher. So I'm not sure if that's consistent with what you've seen. It's certainly consistent with what we've seen in other areas of the city.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. We ran numbers on a couple facilities that are, in place right now. The 1 million square foot building that's on 53 in Millsdale, and then the 500,000 square foot building that's in our park in Elwood. And the numbers range between $1 and $1.20 per square foot using the Joliet tax rates. So your numbers are generally correct, and typically 2/3 of that is going to the schools. So a third would go to the Elwood School District, and a third to the Joliet Township High School District.
All right, number two, can we, and I don't know if you can present it tonight, but there's been some conversation about the agreement the city reached years ago with Centerpoint versus this North Point agreement. Are you in a position where you could talk about the differences between those two?
We'll have some more detailed information. I had heard that there were some things in the agreement that were later changed, and it was some cash contributions. One thing to keep in mind, and I'll throw this out, and I haven't even had this discussion with these guys, but the value, in terms of the lease rates and all the attractiveness of what happened in Centerpoint, it was on the rail line. In effect, it was right there. So think about, I buy a house in the beach, or I buy a house 3 miles from the beach. One of those is worth a heck of a lot more. And I think from an overall development standpoint, there's a lot less infrastructure that would be comparable with Centerpoint. I mean, we're talking about a closed loop system, 3 miles from the intermodal. So there's an awful lot of infrastructure that's going into the ground that wouldn't have been comparable in a Centerpoint. So I think when you see the numbers, you're going to see that there was additional funds, additional cash contributions made by Centerpoint, but it's a different kind of project because a lot of this is going into the ground, and obviously return on investment with a project of this magnitude, you know, there's only so much you can give because you're putting it into ground to make things like the closed loop system happen. But we'll get more details. I don't want it to look like, you know, somehow this isn't a good deal and Centerpoint was. You know, it's apples and oranges, but the return on investment and the market economics of these two projects are different.
And then Mike Turk, you were one of the Centerpoint proponents. What kind of cash did the city get up front? Do you
I
remember?
can't recall.
Was it comparable to this?
I'd have to go back and look, I don't know. That's quite a while
Someone
ago.
should.
Yeah,
So we could have all the
I had
facts.
heard somewhere in the 9 to 10 range, but I'm getting, you know, just saying there's a dollar amount doesn't necessarily mean there weren't other things that were part of that list. So we're checking into that.
All right, and then finally, I had this texted to me. Apparently this was an advertisement that ran in a local newspaper, and there were a whole bucket list of claims or accusations made. So I'm gonna go down each one. If you or you can address this.
It'll be a speed round. We'll figure out.
Yeah,
who can
if
do it.
it's true, not true, where it's right, where it's wrong. Number one, phase one is nearly 5 times the size of Midway Airport. Is that accurate? If you could talk into the mic, please.
I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you the size of Midway Airport, so phase one would be 3 buildings, 3 million square feet.
Okay. Number two, no documented list of who pays for what. I'm not sure I understand.
I believe the agreement does lay that out very clearly, that we basically pay for everything. All the bridge, all the improvements, off-site, on-site. The city is not being required. We have to extend the infrastructure to the park from its current location, the water and sewer. So it's laid out, I believe, clearly, but you know, you certainly can give us your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, for instance, within our subdivision rules, our engineering standards, you know, once we start to review plats and we determine what's necessary, let's just take water, you know, how much water, main size, what kind of pumping capacity, what's the storage, those things will be worked out in the engineering process, so you won't see things in your agreement says, you know, North Point must provide a 1.25 million gallon water tank. You know, that's going to be determined by the engineers, and then they're going to be responsible for funding that and constructing it. So some of the specifics aren't there, but they will be because it's part of our subdivision process.
And it's probably the next point. No written water or sewer plan. No assurance residents' water rates won't go up again. Any comment on that?
Well, the reason water rates and sewer rates are going up is because of infrastructure expenses that we're making in terms of expanding our capacity. North Point will be responsible for constructing all the capacity within this plan, in addition to surplus capacity, because we've talked about regional excess in case there's development within adjacent areas or even to the east. So they'd actually be building more capacity than what we would be requiring for a normal development.
Okay. No budget for additional police or fire. Probably covered in taxes, right, like everyone else?
I mean, the property taxes generated, the other taxes generated are pretty substantial in terms of annual. An industrial area like this doesn't necessarily create, you know, fire, you know, I mean, there are very few fires in town anywhere. Paramedic calls, sure. We're going to get some paramedic runs. We're going to get police patrols looking at what's happening in the area. But it's not going to be an area that would get the same level of intensity as a residential area. And obviously, incrementally, you know, we start out with that property tax. If the police and fire departments decide that there needs to be, you know, an expansion, there would be tax money within this development to pay for that. Part of that police fire training facility we've talked about could also serve as perhaps a relocation of the station that's over at the Speedway. If there was some intense development within the park and adjacent development, it may be necessary to actually move that station further south because of the distances and the timing of runs. But these are things 5-10 years into the future. But we're planning for it now.
No budget for roads leading up to the project.
I'll let you, we talked about that today.
Yeah, very specifically, you know, we met with traffic. We started to review the traffic study and talk about which off-site roads will need to be improved. Some of those will be going through the existing Centerpoint Park. They'll need to be widened signals installed. There'll need to be improvements. We talked about, you know, what if something on Ridge Road, north of the park, not in the park, but needs a requirement, an improvement, intersection, even the pavement itself. And that is our responsibility. If it's something that you think is worth a recapture agreement because it'll benefit some other property, that would be in your decision to grant or not. But we will be responsible for our improvements that are caused by our park. And your traffic folks had a great meeting today, and they want some very specific studies done. So it will take us longer to do that study the way they want it. So we were going to be done this week, but now it'll probably take an extra week. But I think it was a good result, and you know, paint a very clear picture of what the park itself is going to require.
Next, projected revenues are based on inflated property value assessments.
No, this is what other buildings are paying within Jackson Township. So
Yeah.
I said $1, he's talking $1 to $1.25, so I'm taking the low end of that.
Right, so we did share that with the assessor. The building, one building's assessed at $34.97, and the other building's assessed at $38.20. So a lot of people have been just using 30, but 30 does not appear to be the right value based on what the Bissell building and the NFI building are currently assessed at.
Okay. Next, no guarantee the schools will get their fair share.
There's no TIF district at all in this, and in effect, every dollar, as we said, 18% of it comes to the city, and the remaining amount, 2/3 or so, go to the other taxing bodies. So as long as the owner is paying their property tax bill, they will get their fair share.
Revenues already earmarked for pet projects outside North Point area.
No, the agreement that the Plan Commission saw and the City Council will see has a list of things that we say are general examples of what we think would be community benefit. That's up to the council. I would assume that as if this is approved, if monies flow forward, that would be part of our budget process. So in effect, that money gets segregated from other general funds, and if there are projects that the city council think are valuable or value added, that's up to you to decide. So there's no earmarking of this for things other than those examples.
Okay. Next, no transportation or impact studies provided.
We have a financial impact study that has been provided. They're in the process of updating their IDOT required traffic counts. One of the requirements before this property would be actually physically annexed in is the submittal of that up-to-date revised traffic study.
And we actually went through the first part of the submittal today, and that's what generated some other looks that they would like to see. These are based on, you know, growth rates and the park with background growth, the park without background growth. So that was further resolved, but actually the study would have been submitted Friday. Now it'll be submitted probably next Friday.
Okay. Next, closed loop traffic is a myth.
They don't get a building permit unless it's done. So that, I mean, it's in the agreement, so that I can't state that any more clear than that.
Okay. Next, wasting taxpayer dollars voting before Joliet Intermodal Transportation Plan study releases in June.
I'm not sure. Oh, I know what that is.
Is it the Will County plan they're talking
Yeah,
about?
the Will County plan. The Will County plan, if this was not a closed loop system, I would say that's absolutely something that would be a valid point. But it's a closed loop system. I mean, in effect, we're talking about generating the traffic through the intermodals that, as I said, would eventually go to the Hobart Road Bridge or to Arsenal Road. So that pretty much follows what the whole freight plan says. It's you cluster industrial development near interchanges, and you're funneling traffic to those points as opposed to letting it just run rampant through communities. You could add to that.
No, I think that's perfect. There's always studies going on, and we have the Will County Community Freight Friendly Mobility Study, which we actually went through with staff today. They have a checklist of, you know, some 50 items, and we did go through that. Staff will be further evaluating that to see how we stand on that. So We waited for that study previously when we were looking at the first life of the park to make sure we had that input. And that was a very, very significant study, as you all know. So we are taking that into account. We are also working with the groups that are doing the further studies. CMAP has one study, and Will County has the other, and we've made ourselves available. We have had one call with CMAP to go through our data to add to the CMAP study that's also taking place.
Okay. Next, extreme problems with the proposed bridge.
I'll let you address that one. They'll probably talk about the litigation.
I'm sorry, if you think that's...
Extreme problems
think it's the litigation then?
with the proposed bridge.
Yeah. So it is, in litigation, as you know, and we're confident in that process. We feel very good about it, and it's winding its way through. The Village of Elwood did recently ask for an extension. We certainly granted that, and it should come to a head, in the next few months.
And Mayor, I'll add to that, I'll go back to that same comment about no building permits without closed loop. If for some reason this southern access point isn't what ties into the intermodal, in effect, they would either have to come up with alternatives in terms of other locations, but once again, still making a closed loop system over Route 53, or there would not be any building permits issued.
Mayor,
Yeah,
if I could just tag on to that.
sure.
There was a meeting a couple weeks ago that I attended down at the VFW post, and you were there. And what disturbed me the next day was that we have no Plan B when you were asked about that. Can you elaborate on that tonight?
Well, we are proceeding with what we think is the best location. It is one of the locations that IDOT had picked in the ICC hearing. It's the location that you all endorsed after or during the ICC hearing, and we agree. We think it makes the absolute most sense. It also is land we own, so this bridge is to serve the land that is fully entitled in the Village of Elwood, and it's the land that we currently own, and the obligation to provide the access to that land is in that agreement. So that makes the most sense to pursue. If for some reason that dies on the vine, then we have to go back to the drawing board and come up with something that you all would support.
Next, likely forced annexation and condemnation of private land.
There's no proposal for forced annexation within the plan.
Okay. Likely destruction of Bettye and Abe Lincoln National Cemetery.
Within the plan, you'll note that there's about well, you can't tell, but it's about a 2,600-foot buffer between Hoff Road. That was something apparently North Point did prior to even talking to us. Was that when you were talking to Elwood?
That was a meeting with Bettye.
Got it.
That, most government agencies will not, federal government agencies will not weigh in on, like or dislike, but one of the things they were happy to hear was that previously Elwood's plan was 750 acres of industrial right on Hoff Road, so immediately contiguous to Bettye, and they were happy to see that we were actually pushing the industrial 2,600 feet off of Hoff Road. They thought that would be a benefit.
Right. You want to address the cemetery? I know there's some mitigation efforts that have been made and are being made. Are you prepared to address that, or is that something, as the plans are developed for the next meeting?
Yeah, I think, for one, we met with the cemetery 3 years ago with the village manager from Elwood and got some input from them, and they have always been, one of the most important things that we have considered. And so we knew that trucks turning around in there was a problem. I can't tell you exactly what the frequency is today that's happening. We have called the cemetery to have a new meeting to update, since it has been 3 years since that meeting took place. But we are, extremely sensitive to the cemetery. My father-in-law is buried there, and so it's something very near and dear to me. So we do want to make sure that we're showing all the respect that our veterans deserve, and all these folks out here who have defended us. So Anything we can do, we will. We certainly are willing to do some improvements for them if that were of interest to them. But one of the main things is taking the traffic off of 53, removing that intersection. That is the closest intersection to the cemetery, is the intersection that is in our park. So that's 2.5 million square feet can be built in that park. And today there's a 500,000 feet that outlets right at that spot. So to completely remove that intersection, we think will be a very big benefit. But certainly there's more to do, more to be done, more to learn, and we're here to listen.
Mayor, if I may, along the same lines, also at the meeting you discussed regarding the cemetery, a lot of these GPSs give these truck drivers the wrong directions, and you talked about a special turnaround if they do take that wrong turn. Can you explain that like you did the other night?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Yeah, again, from that meeting, one of the most expensive features of this park is a very significant turnaround on Mississippi. So our hope is to realign Mississippi to make it a 90-degree road instead of the curve that it is today. But you'll see right where Mississippi will come in a very large turnaround, unlike the other turnarounds that are purely meant to keep the trucks in the park. This one is meant to bring the trucks to that entrance, any lost trucks. So the plan is to put signage on Route 53 that says driver looking for an Elwood or Joliet address. We don't care what you're looking for. We don't care if you're looking for our park or not. Turn east on Mississippi. So to give folks a place to go, because a lot of these people are lost. They've looked on, GPS maybe got them there, but probably more likely they looked on Google Earth and they saw all these roads that go into the intermodal, but they don't, right? Millsdale doesn't, they can't go through. Schweitzer, they can't go through. Of course, Walter Strong, they can't go through. If you look on Google Earth, you will see a road through the cemetery, diagonal road, goes from the cemetery right into the Center Point Park. At the end of that is a gate. None of these are ways to get through, but if you're looking on a Google Earth system, you see all of these roads. So somebody has done that, they've ended up over here. We want to invite them in to this very large turnaround that would be at the entrance of our park, that would be staffed, that would have signage in multiple languages, so that we can say, look, this is where you went wrong. Where are you trying to get to? You're trying to get to Joliet, UP? Are you trying to get to Elwood, BNSF? Are you trying to get to Compass Business Park? You need to go south to River Road, out to the expressway and start over. Cost you 45 minutes. Maybe don't do it again. But we want to try to educate and handle that situation rather than say, can't come here, you figure it out. Because that is actually what happens on all those roads today. They have no option. So that grew out of, again, this concern of not having somebody try to go down to the cemetery and pull a U-turn in the cemetery.
Yes.
Is there a service that upgrades the Google Maps or whomever's or county service that could be utilized to help the truckers or?
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Technology is going to be a lot of what helps solve these problems. One of the former Will County board members is a representative for one of the systems we're looking into. There's other systems that are out there that we can use as a park to help guide people. So we certainly will be participating in those types of things with our tenants. That's something that we can talk about with that committee that we want to have, that we want you to participate in, where we talk about the problems that are happening, making sure we're up on the latest technology, and then our tenants are participating in that meeting so that we can make sure they're working with this system, because technology is definitely going to be a huge answer.
Mayor?
Yes.
And when are you going to be meeting with the management and authorities of the Veteran Cemetery? You said you were going to be scheduling a new meeting.
Yeah, so we made that call after, I think, the last Plan Commission meeting last week, and she said she couldn't meet with us for 2 or 3 weeks, but then she would schedule something with us. So we'll certainly make ourselves available at her earliest convenience.
I have 2 more. Squandered tax dollars on multiple lawsuits already started. You can speak to that.
I don't think he's referencing anything that we're involved in.
Okay.
They
And last, contradicts existing comprehensive plan.
That's a real interesting question because, as you know, from a discussion maybe a year and a half ago, when the city was facing a rezoning somewhere, was it Smith Farm? Smith Farm. You know, it was an industrial proposal, and it was pointed out by our planning staff that, in effect, our Southside Comprehensive Plan still calls for very large areas of our south region to be residential. Obviously, those plans were done before intermodals existed along Center Point, and as a result of that discussion, it was pretty clear from City Council, excuse me, that, you know, that was something that the council felt was an antiquated plan, and we had plans moving forward to redo our comprehensive plan. So in effect, I mean, it's an antiquated plan. It's been discussed in public hearings, it's been discussed in open sessions. Councils acknowledge that, and they've said that the market has changed down there. With our current comp plan, we had our kickoff meeting this week. The mayor just made the appointment for the steering committee. We've started to have some interesting discussions about, okay, if North Point was approved, how does that affect the rest of the area? And I'm a proponent, for those of you who were down there already, I'm a proponent, have become somewhat of a proponent, to look at this area as being something where industrial and new residential could coexist. I think a lot of us have looked at the encroachment and said, you know, it's becoming less and less of a residential environment. After visiting what's happened down in Kansas City, I've changed my opinion on that, because I think with a well-designed park, with a park that integrates landscape features, amenities, and literally becomes kind of part of the community as opposed to something that is separate from the community, I think from a planning perspective, that offers some examples for us to look at. So I've asked the two staff members that'll be going down to North Point's Kansas City location to take a look at that, to really, you know, eyeball that. Don't just look at the park, look at what's outside the park, look at the quality of life, look at how the two coexist. And I think this will help steer us with regard to Joliet's next 10, 15, 20 years to the south. But you know, those are decisions that council will make, plan commission will have an impact on, and certainly our steering committee, once those plans get to their level, that'll be something that they'll have to weigh in on.
That's all I have. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
Did you wait your hand?
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't even see because Larry was covering. One.
I'm going to see.
So sorry for taking so long. I usually do a 2-minute report, but in view of the fact that there's some pretty large issues coming up, I thought I would bring those to your attention. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to shout out to our community development team, our public works team, our utilities team, and Chris Regis of our legal staff, who did a great job helping coordinate the review of this and getting it on a plan commission in a timely fashion. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
New business, not for final action or recommendation.
New business?
I have nothing.
One item, Mayor, and it dovetails into the questions and comments that were just made. I think the additional thing as a city we can do, as it addresses certainly the veteran cemetery, but also the homes down there that say that, you know, at times these truck drivers get disregard when they get, you know, turned around. I would have to, you know, say that it's not the majority of the truck drivers, because that's thousands of trucks. There'd be thousands a week, but there's enough that we need to take a look at our traffic fines down there. We may need to beef them up. Somebody just said, I think it was the gentleman from North Point that said, well, maybe they won't do it again. You hit them with a big fine, maybe they won't do it again.
Nothing.
Sherry? Mike? Chief Blasky? Yes. We talked yesterday about the coronavirus and what the fire department's doing, our first responders. Could you give us an update?
Well, I spoke a little bit about the meeting earlier. And just to put this out here, I am not the health department. merely gathered some information from what's out there. There seems to be a lot of misinformation as well. So I did some searching as far as what's out there, because I think that's the angst of the unknown right now. So the coronavirus, or is also known as COVID-19, is a coronavirus, but the family coronavirus is not new. We experienced SARS in 2002, MERS in 2012. So they've been around for quite a while. However, COVID-19 is a novel or a new virus that we don't completely understand it yet. COVID-19 virus was first identified in the United States on January 21st, so we were about 6+ weeks since its initial detection. The total amount of cases in the United States is now at 60, with 6 reported deaths, and it has been identified in 12 states, including Illinois. In Illinois, the Illinois Department of Public Health has screened 102 persons for the virus. 4 are tested positive, 79 negative, and 19 are awaiting results. And how is it transmitted? No different than the regular flu, through airborne droplets, through close contact with an infected person, or touching an object or surface that has the virus on it. And the symptoms, again, are similar just to the seasonal flu, of a fever greater than 100 degrees, cough, and shortness of breath. And most healthy people will have no serious issues with the virus, but at-risk populations such as the very young, the elderly, and those with existing health conditions. How are we doing with prevention? Is education through proper sourcing materials is what I have found. There's a lot of, again, information, a lot of misinformation. The best sources of information I have found are the Illinois Department of Public Health and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention websites. They are producing the most current and accurate data, and I encourage people to go on there to gather that data. Hand washing, often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, is highly recommended. Hand sanitizer, if you're going to use that, use it with at least 60% alcohol content. Avoid touching your mouth, your nose, and eyes with one hand. Stay home if you're sick. Clean commonly touched surfaces. There seems to be a lot of people reaching out to try to gather masks. Masks are only really needed if someone is going to go out in the public and you are the infected person. Otherwise, masks provide little and no protection. Looking out there is some incredible stuff on the website, and I would caution against the misinformation. I have found that issues such as that have been suggested to help, shaving of beards, ingestion of chlorine products, sipping water every 15 minutes, garlic. Again, misinformation. In the package that I gave you, after we left last evening, I got an email that said coronavirus is here, and there's a gentleman in Oregon in a full level A suit, and it says learn how to survive. There are a lot of profiteering going on with this right now, and I believe there was an article that Amazon has pulled a lot of things from their website for people that are selling products to people that are in essence just snake oil. But to put this in perspective with other flus that are out there, flu season is generally, the seasonal flus is generally from October through May, with peak times in February. Right now, the state of Illinois has listed Illinois as widespread for seasonal flu, and we have been that way since mid-December and continue with widespread. Looking at some numbers just for the season for right now, and this was from the CDC through February 22nd. For the seasonal flu, they've estimated there's 30 to 40 million illnesses that have already occurred, 15 to 20 million medical visits, 300 to 500,000 hospitalizations, and 20 to 45,000 deaths have occurred from the seasonal flu already this year. And I look back a few years, and 2017-2018 season would hit us very hard in the nation. These are national numbers. These are not worldwide numbers. There was 49 million illnesses, 23 million medical visits, 950,000 hospitalizations, and 79,000 deaths from the seasonal flu. So while I'm not discounting the COVID-19 at all, I'm hopeful this brings attention to folks as far as what we need to be doing is about proper hand washing, staying home if you're sick, and take those general precautions. As far as what we have done, the city and the fire department, we have had a infection disease exposure management SOP since 1992. that follows OSHA and NFPA best practices. There's been no call to action from the Will County Health Department or from the CDC or the IDPH for us to take any actions. I did search some of the websites with the schools. It's kind of a mixed bag. Some have put some information out that they're just in the monitoring phase, but there's been no call to action other than following good, safe protocols for the regular seasonal flu. And there's nothing else they're asking us to do right now. We're not stockpiling anything, and we are treating patients in a normal fashion.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I could just add a few simple things to that.
Sure.
Being a nurse, simple things like if you have to cough, don't cough into your hand because you're passing your germs on. Cough into your elbow. If you have to sneeze, use a tissue. Use your coat if you have to, because depending on how strong the sneeze is, it can project droplets anywhere from 3 to 6 feet, which would spread the virus. And again, they're teaching this in the grade schools as well. Hand washing, hand washing, hand washing. Can't say it enough. And what they say is sing happy birthday or twinkle, twinkle, little star. That gives you your 20 seconds to wash your hand. At home with your handles or out when you're out and about, when you're touching handles, wash your hand, but keep your hands away from your face. That's your best protection, is the hand washing and covering yourself when you're coughing and sneezing.
Thank you, Chief. That's all I have, Krista.
Next is public comments. First is Laura Klecka. Just a reminder, we have a 4-minute time limit.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Odekirk and Honorable Councilwomen and Councilmen. My name is Laura Klecka, and I live at 1838 Kendall Ridge Boulevard in Plainfield with Joliet Municipalities, which is why I've come here today to speak to you. On the night of January 17th, my family was awoken to the startling sounds of an explosion and subsequent sounds of what seemed to be fireworks. We quickly learned that the property next door at 1836 Kendall Ridge was on fire. After calling 911, authorities quickly evacuated our family, as well as several other surrounding property owners, one of which, Cara Dipner, who currently is on shift at her job at Adventist Hospital right now, could not attend the meeting, but my husband, Stephen Klecka, will be reading her remarks. Our property, garage side, sustained melted siding, and due to the chemical releases within our home, we evacuated for 3 weeks. It has been an insurance expense to clean and attempt to rectify the damage we've sustained. But my concerns tonight are twofold after the aftermath of this. The remnants of the almost entirely burned structure have yet to be cleaned up. This proposes a health hazard for my family and the neighbors around me. Pieces of debris continue to fall day and night, and it's a safety issue. When I called the city initially after the event, a chain fence was erected, and though my contact with the city has been a good source, I was told that a fence is simply what the city is capable of doing. A chain link does not mitigate the dangers of the charcoal soot, nor the pieces of debris falling. I have been told with no surprise, having been the property owner's neighbor for 20 years, that there could be some obstacles in the delay of demolition. The fire report stated this occupant blatantly ignored visible smoke for more than an hour, admitting negligence. There are property complaints of open gas cans in the yard throughout the years, and despite multiple liens on the property, the owner would not attend to his swamp of an above-ground pool and overgrown lawn for 3 consecutive summers. This was blatant irresponsibility given the concerns for West Nile virus and other rodent infestations. My question to the council is, why does the city have less power than other surrounding suburbs do for irresponsible homeowners that are dealt with in more timely manners? My second concern, despite the foreclosure situation of the property owner, is if he's able to return, will the city continue to allow the remaining part of the yard to remain? Being familiar with these owners, I would say that their pool and yard will still go unkept. This leads to further health concerns for the surrounding neighbors. I ask that the city please investigate and push for measures to clean the house debris in the interim while we figure out what's being done for the property. My family nor my neighbors did not ask for this, and yet we're suffering for it. As a mother of 2 children with asthma, I very much wish for this to be cleaned up in a timely manner and that the responsibility be held accountable for this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, do you know anything about the tear down of the property or the rehab?
That would be through the building department,
Okay,
not,
well, maybe-
not through the fire department.
Yeah, I'll follow up with neighborhood services on the issues. We'll consider this a nuisance and look into possibility of cleaning it up and placing a lien on the property.
Can you speak to Ms. Fleck after the meeting?
Sure will.
Thank you.
Andrea Baumhart.
Good day. My name is Andrea Baumhart. I'm an art teacher by profession, a Catholic by faith, and what I'm about to say, I hope it casts some light on your hearts. And I have a right to speak as a resident of Will County. I am a resident of Manhattan. I work in Lockport. I attend St. Denis Parish for Mass, and my children go to school in Lockport and New Lenox. So we are all over Will County every single day. Mayor, I'm here today to speak to your heart. And I'm here to speak to anybody that is willing to listen today with an open heart. So I've brought you a copy of a painting today, and I want to teach you about it. And this painting is by Caravaggio. It's painted in 1600 AD. And it's painted in chiaroscuro, which means extreme light and dark contrast, which is what is bringing everybody here today, isn't it? Extreme contrast. Yes. This painting is called The Calling of St. Matthew. Here, Matthew, the tax collector, is sitting counting his collected tax with his fellow government officials, and they are in the dark. And they are absorbed with their task. But a few of them do respond and look up to the light with Matthew. In this moment, Jesus Christ enters the room, and he beckons to Matthew. You, he says, and he points to him. And Matthew takes pause from his counting his tax, and he looks up into that light, and he points back at himself and says, me? Could the Lord be seeking me out? What does he want of me? Lowly me. Doesn't he know everybody despises me, the government official? Why me? You, the Lord beckons. You. And the light changed Matthew. And so those of you with a Christian heart know that in this story, Matthew was then called to serve, to pause in his tax collection, to serve his community in a different way, to love his neighbor in a way he had not yet done before. And I ask you, how are you called to serve? Please open your heart and love your neighbor. Be touched by just one sliver of light today. And there are many in this room. Just one. Be touched by one sliver of light. See what is important and valued here cannot be quantified by any collected tax. And it can't be replaced by a bag of silver. You have the power and the voice to make a valuable difference in these sacred communities. The cemetery, Elwood, Manhattan. What you do affects all of us. And I ask...
Andrea, at the 4-minute mark, you wrap it up, please.
Thank you. May God grant all of us the courage to change the things that we are still able to change. Thank you, veterans, for your courage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will all veterans and family please stand so we can see you? Joliet City Council and Mayor. First, we want to thank all veterans who are here tonight and those who could not attend. We stand in unison to protect Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, the veterans, the spouses, and their families. As the commander of Stone City VFW Post 2199, located within the city of Joliet, I am ready to inform you about a problem we see every day with all the truck traffic. Semi-trucks using GPS are getting lost, driving in the Abraham National Cemetery, driving on top of veterans' graves. This is not in my written report or my report. I've been living in Elwood for about 18 years. They drive up and down Arsenal, even with a big sign that says no trucks. They drive down Mississippi, and they drive into the cemetery. There's also a problem with semis interfering with veterans' funerals. Recently, burying a World War II hero, while I was in procession, I witnessed a semi-truck drive in the middle of the funeral procession. I talked with other veterans who had run into the same situation. This is a very real problem. Many of our patrons, including founding members who are World War II and Korean War veterans, have said they will not drive here because of the truck traffic. They are also affected our business at Stone City VFW Post 2199. Council members who say they are pro-business should also want to protect existing businesses that are already here. All our veterans should be at the top of your list of people to protect. Businesses to protect. People, make sure if you are going to approve North Point or any other trucking warehouse facility that you put them close to expressways, not along 53, where they do harm to Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, U.S. Forest Preserve, Bettye, Tallgrass Prairie, with a bison roam, Stone City VFW, and others that are affected. For this reason, we strongly oppose North Point, both with or without the proposed bridge over Route 53. Respectfully, Commander Kevin Pamakawa, Stone City, Post 2199, U.S. Navy, retired. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Erin Gallagher, and I'm here to invite you all to a No to North Point Town Hall. We have two scheduled. One is this Thursday at Knights of Columbus on Infantry Drive. Doors open at 6, and there will be a presentation at 7 o'clock. And then the second one is going to be Monday at the Croatian Club on Clement. Same time, doors open at 6, presentation at 7. I think you'll get some good information that's well-researched that will explain why things like the closed loop really is a myth. And for anybody who's going, I can say that 181st and Route 56 in Edgerton and Gardner, Kansas is a place to visit. It's clearly outside of the intermodal. Poplar Street, which is Cherokee and 183rd, are also a place where plenty of trucks drive through. Mr. George, I want to make sure that we have it on the record. I understood you said we will be responsible for our improvements that are caused by the park. I encourage council members who are going to Kansas to also look at Interstate 35 and Gardner exit. That interchange has been a problem for that community for several years, and that has not been improved, and it was caused by the park. I think that there are apples and oranges differences between the Centerpoint and North Point proposals, not because of the use or because one is rail and one isn't. I think they're apples and oranges because North Point's getting away with paying a fraction of what Centerpoint paid, and I think if you take a look at the numbers and really take a look at the numbers, you're going to see that it's a gross difference. So yes, in that case, it is apples and oranges. But the money that was spent at Centerpoint was used to mitigate traffic problems.
It was used to entertain the existing communities and anticipate problems, and discussions were had with people outside of the immediate area. And that's where the money was spent. So when you take a good look at it, and I know what the numbers are, so when you take a good look at it, you will see that it was mitigation of potential problems. North Point hasn't addressed any of those things. So I'm here to introduce a World War II veteran who has something to say to you. So if everybody could please welcome World War II veteran, lifelong Joliet resident, Felix Pasteras.
20 years ago that I came to this council, and Michael Turk was the only one that I knew. And I had a problem with my street, and Joliet decided to dump some more water in our basements. So I came and complained. I gave a good story, and Mayor Schultz says, "We'll take care of you." And I didn't believe it at first, and then the coming weeks there's people all over the town, all over the street. And they ripped up the street and eliminated all my, it was 20 years ago, I put a sump pump in and I never used it since. So the city of Joliet can do some good, and I really appreciated it. And the reason I'm telling you this, I was born in Joliet in 1921. That was 98 years ago. And I believe in Joliet. And we are sort of being taken in to something that we can't handle. And usually the money wins out. And I hope this doesn't happen this time. So I want to thank Joliet to do the right thing. And I got through, I've been in Joliet for 98 years, and the only 5 years that I wasn't in Joliet was I was in the Army. And I was in 4 invasions, and I'm still here. So I'm thankful for that. And thank you all. All I hope Joliet will do the right thing. I mean, think it over. This is very important. And the money usually wins, and the people usually lost. Our house, where I was born in 607 South Ottawa Street, Route 80 took it. But Route 80 was a good thing. It was good for everybody. But this, I don't know. So I hope you do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Now, it's a funny thing. I go out to the cemetery and stand there and I say, "Helen, I'll be with you in a few years." And it's a funny sensation to stand on top of your wife and say, "I'll see you, honey." So we're married 70 years, so it's a good marriage. Thank you. Thank you and thank you.
Good evening, my name is Skip Huckbauer. I'm the post chaplain of Stone City 2199. Obviously, you know our views on the cemetery issue. Trucks break down, they lose their load, they get in accidents. This is a problem for our veterans as they try to honor their loved ones. This is also a concern for the safety, for the development. Trying to follow this is very difficult. However, what I would like to address at this point, change the subject a little bit, is that I'm also
the voting judge for the 35th precinct. As such, people ask me, who's in charge? That's a loaded question. Who's in charge? So what I'd like to do for the Boy Scouts back there, that I thank very much for them being here, and for other people, especially I hope school children are watching this on cable TV if that's available for them. A little bit of a civics lesson, what actually goes on. When I answer this question, who's in charge? Joliet being part of Kendall and Will County, they comprise of 72 precincts. Of the 72 precincts, they are divided by districts 1 through 5. I am in District 5, therefore my councilman is Terry Moore Sr. So, if anybody's asking who's in charge of the 35th precinct, it's Mr. Morris. There are also 3 members at large. I'm not sure what at the at large part is. It sounds like they are over everything, and apparently they don't have any precincts that report to them, or they report to the precincts. We also are in the 11th Congressional District. For the House, it's Bill Foster, and for the U.S. Senate, it's Dick Durbin, Senator Durbin, should say, and Senator Terry Duckworth. In Springfield, we're in the 43rd Legislative District. That's Pat McGuire, and the 86th District for the House is Larry Walsh Jr. So these are the people that they want to talk to. Also, at the Will County Board, we're in District 8. We've got Mr. Hobart Brooks and Miss Dennis Winfrey. She's also the County Board Speaker. These are the people who should be contacted when we have issues. When we can't find the resolve here, this is the next step. For example, the state of Illinois owns Route 53. Federal government owns the Abraham Lincoln Cemetery. These are the people that we are voting for. The question is, who's in power? The answer is the voter, because the voter is the one who puts you people in charge to represent us. That's pretty much the bottom line. And this is what the veterans of foreign wars of the United States of America have fought and died for. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Councilman, Councilwomen. I stand here before my wife eloquently put the situation that we have been enduring for the last 2 months now, and I am to read another account from one of our neighbors. Actually, her name is Cara, and she is also a resident of Kendall Ridge. She lives off of Faxton Lane. We actually live right next door, and we have sustained multiple incidents with this particular neighbor. The night of the fire that my wife mentioned on January 17th, we were forced to evacuate our houses the night of the fire as a precaution of our house directly backed up to the house that was on fire. Since the fire, we have been extremely concerned about the potential negative effects this is having on the environment and our physical health. Since the burned down house is still somewhat standing, we are being exposed to the leftover remnants, soot, a byproduct of the incomplete burning of organic carbon-containing materials, serves as a major health concern to those neighboring this house. Since people can be exposed to soot by inhalation, according to cancer.gov, this serves as a potential to cause great harm if not being taken care of. According to cancer.gov, many studies have found exposure to soot and leftover fire particles increases one risk of various cancers. We are still dealing with the aftermath of the smell of smoke when outside, causing it to be difficult to go outside and enjoy the weather from our yards. Soot and smoke damage can lead to long-term health risks, which is why this house needs to be cleaned up as quickly as possible. Preferably, we would like it leveled because we feel that it is a danger to society. It is a hazardous materials. There's about 1,000 different materials that are off-gassing, and toxins are released into the air. And that is every day we experience more and more
of the ramifications from this terrible peril. Someone is trying to start a family. I can't imagine the negative effect of the lingering odors and remnants have on my body. And if I become pregnant, I'm asking you with great concern for not only myself and my neighbors, but for my family to please have this lot demolished and cleaned up at the sake of our health and longevity. And I must also ask on your behalf that we have also reached an impasse when it comes to not the city council, but some of the members of the city of Joliet. It seems that we keep getting transferred to different departments, and for some reason they start the demolition process, and then somehow it always gets put back to the back burner for some reason. And we're asking for justice to be served, and we're asking for it to be swift. And
Thank
please,
you.
thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. I'm Rita Renwick. I'm a resident of Joliet. I have lived here 47 years. I'm also here representing not only myself, but the 177 members of the Will County chapter of the Illinois Audubon Society. I'm their conservation chair. I'm here in opposition to the North Point Compass Business Park. And what prompted me to come tonight was that recently 3 of my acquaintances who don't really, this was not connected, we weren't together, but within a week, each of them told me that they were thinking about moving. And it's kind of like they were giving up on the city. And it made me very sad, I will say. I mean, I believe in Joliet. So approving this, to allow this development to go through, is, to me, defines us. It defines us as a city and what we're about. You know, it pretty much says we're only good for warehouses and trucks. And to me, someone coming in and saying the Joliet Country Club should be warehouses just proves my point. I mean, what other places do we have here, and what do we view for, you know, the future of the city? It's got to be better than more warehouses and more trucks. Sorry. I think the citizens of Joliet deserve responsible government with a city council who has vision for the future that consists of more than that. Bettye National Tallgrass Prairie, you know, I keep talking about it. It's been around for quite a while. I don't think its time has really come yet. I mean, I am from the Starved Rock area originally. They get 2.5 million people a year between Starved Rock and Matheson. People come from all over. And I think our focus should be on the Route 66 corridor. And we have so many great things going on in Joliet with the prison and the Rialto and the new downtown that we're trying to develop. And I mean, that's one of the reasons, that's what attracted me to Joliet. We have history, we have character, we have grit. And that's why I chose this city to live in. So I think we can do something more positive than this. You know, I read the pre-annexation agreement, and let me tell you, okay, it came out on a Thursday. The Planning Commission voted on a Monday, and we're talking about city council, and I know it's pre, but we're talking about voting and doing all of this in less than a month. The Thornton's gas station took like 3 months. So it's mind-boggling to me that this is going so quickly. Their naturalization of everything, they appear to be green, but I know what happens. I met with Rudiger and Tonelli when Centerpoint came in, and they promised native plantings on the berms and so on. And within a few years, as far as I know, that disappeared. I saw a few flowers, but you know, having native plantings and having those areas, you have to plant everything right, and you also have to manage. Bettye, it takes 2 years at least to start a natural planting. They grow soybeans for 2 years to get rid of all the weed seeds. And then they plant seeds in the fall so they can overwinter. And then they plant plugs. And then they burn and they mow up high so they get rid of the weed seeds. I mean, a development like this that's going to come in and throw some seeds down, Centerpoint mows everything now, because what happens is every weed comes in, bushes start growing, trees start growing, and pretty soon, you know, if you did this in your yard, it would not look good. And so they end up just mowing and it's done for. You have to have management and you have to put money into it. And as far as I can see, these warehouses will be individually run once they're built.
Ma'am, you're at the 4-minute mark here. Wrap it
Am
up,
I?
please. Yeah.
Okay, and the closed loop system, I just know the trucks, you know, it's great if they can get there, but the problem is getting there, and the American Trucking Association says they have a 78% turnover in truck drivers. So you're dealing with new people all the time.
Thank you. At the microphone.
My name's Garrett Boyer, and I
Microphone, please.
you can tell I'm against Center Point, or North Point, or any point. I did 30 years with the Will County Sheriff's Department. I did 32 years in this uniform, active and reserve. I suffer from leukemia, and I lost my kidney to cancer 4 years ago. I live right on the line where these guys want to build their warehouses. I live off of Ridge Road in a Hemp Hill subdivision. I asked them to buy my house because I can't sell my house, because everybody that comes and looks at the houses that are for sale, what's the Center Point? And once they hear what it is, they don't want anything to do with it. So we asked them, well, why don't you buy our houses for what they're worth? Okay, I'd sit on an acre of property. I got 25, almost 2,600 square foot house and a nice extra garage. I can't sell it. So I hope that you guys are happy when you vote and get your taxes, because I'm getting it right where the sun don't shine.
Al Gutierrez, Elwood resident for 48 years. I just have something to say here to the people of North Point, this representative here, and to the city council. How many of you have taken a trip down to Kansas City already? You told us you were going to take one. How many other warehousing complexes are in Kansas City?
I don't know the answer.
Can you shed light on that? How many?
Mr. Gutierrez, can you address the council, please?
Well, this all ties in together.
Okay.
Because if Kansas City only got North Point out there, there's one big complex. You got 2 Center Points out there. You've already annexed all the property just about up to 52 on Laraway Road. And you've already annexed all the property and zoned warehousing over to Arsenal Road, both sides of 53. Now, what they don't tell you is in order for them to fill their warehouses, they got to take the business away from somebody else. There's no new stores coming in. Dollar Tree's got their own warehouse. Harbor Freight's got their own warehouse. So in order for them to get the business, they take it from somebody else. Just like the racetracks. In order for them to get a race, they got to get it from another track. So they give you this, paint this pretty picture of how their warehouse is going to look. All warehouses look the same on the outside and on the inside. They're only there as a building. It's not like housing to where you got this beautiful 2-story, 5-bedroom, and then next to it you got 10 or 5,000 square foot ranch house. That's what brings the community together and brings people in, not warehousing. Why would you want to take and jeopardize what you've already zoned for warehousing for this big project? Nobody's going to be able to build. What are you going to do then? Say, can we put it back into housing? They're not going to want to build. Something for you to think about.
Thank you.
Hi, Councilmen and women. I represent Manhattan American Legion 935. I'm also a Manhattan resident. And I know that there has been a recent semi that did go into Abraham Lincoln Cemetery as recent as February 12th, because I was there in the evening pulling out as he was pulling in, and I backed him back out on the 53 so he could exit the cemetery. He wouldn't pull all the way in. So
as soon as February 12th. We, the members of Manhattan 935 American Legion, stand with the community of Manhattan, Illinois against North Point proposed bridge project, an infringement of community access to roadways, including but not limited to U.S. Route 52, Manhattan Road in Manhattan. In addition to the Legion membership agrees with officials believing the business park will affect the quality of life due to drastic change in landscape, distribution of funeral processions for Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, and a negative impact on the safety of residents. It will increase air, light, and noise pollution and cause a burden to the current infrastructure and would cut off easy access to Manhattan and Joliet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is David Brown. I live in Manhattan, Illinois. I'm a resident of Will County for, oh gosh, I don't know, 40 years, I guess. Unfortunately, moved up to DuPage County one time and came back home. Folks, I grew up in Frankfurt. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I'm really, really concerned. Yeah, they talk about the bridge, they talk about a loop. That's all fine and dandy. How are those truckers going to get to that loop? How are they going to stop them? You talk about being friends with your neighbors of Elwood and Manhattan. Does anybody become friends with Frankfurt, Mokina, New Lenox, Richmond Park, Matson? How are all those trucks going to come across I-57? They can come down Route 30, Laraway Road, and Manhattan Road can't take any more weight of trucks. Your village, Will County is replacing the road every year because it can't handle the weight. No concerns about that. Anybody concerned about the truck traffic coming through Manhattan? Anybody? Are any of you concerned? I don't see anybody very concerned about it. I'm concerned about it. I live there. There's people behind me, I'm sure, raising their hands that are very concerned about it. Excuse me. How do the trucks get into the project? Nobody can answer that. Great, they're all going to come off I-55. Yeah, sure they are. It ain't going to happen, folks. 5,000 trucks a day? In and out, 2,500 going in, 2,500 going out? It was talked about at your planning commission a couple weeks ago of hazardous material. Are you prepared for that? Manhattan has a school that's 1 mile away from there. Who's going to police this? Who's going to take care of it? Manhattan? You? I don't want to talk about the riffraff of truck drivers and warehouse workers coming in, but you're going to have a problem there also. You're going to have transient people coming in and coming out. Who's going to buy a house in an industrial park? Nobody. I can't believe what I just heard. Nobody's going to want to live next to an industrial park with containers piled up on top of each other. You're fooling yourselves if you believe that to be the truth. Again, I ask you to speak to the other communities surrounding just Joliet. Many of you probably don't even know Edifice that used to be on Route 53. I know you all sure know about Marishka's. I still like to come down there and have good poor boy. Talking about water tanks. You guys are already struggling with water. You're going to tie into Lake Michigan somehow, someday. Can you support this now? The infrastructure isn't there. I ask all of you to slow down. You have a bridge going over I-80. Granted, it's the federal government's problem. It's a federal highway. It can't handle any more truck traffic. Can your police department handle it? How about the hazardous material? And I might have said that already. It's going to be next to the schools of Elwood and Manhattan. Is that a concern of any of you? I hope it is. I hope you think with your hearts and not the financial stuff. I wasn't going to say this, but I don't know why. I probably shouldn't, but I listened to a guy over here speak who, if I didn't know any better, was on the payroll for North Point. Yeah. I'm sorry. The man is an advocate. I don't know all the tax breaks. I don't know all the tax laws. I don't know the federal excise stuff that they can and cannot do if they're not going to be paying taxes on this or that. Small businesses come in. Yeah, you know, a couple of weeks ago, there was a whole bunch of union people here. Who paid for them to be here? North Point. Where did their shirts come from? North Point. Where did the union people come that were at the building commission?
2 hours away.
You're at the 4-minute mark. You're wrapping up, please.
I appreciate that. I really, really do.
Thank you.
Where are they tonight? They don't care. They don't live in this community. Where are the union workers going to come? They're going to be working in these warehouses. They're not there.
Thank you.
Where do I start? Honorable Mayor, distinguished City Council members. My name is Ty Keller. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I wouldn't say I'm a very smart man when it comes to these types of things. I've sat and listened to the arguments. I run a Veterans Outreach program. It's called Veterans Outreach Services of Illinois. And I was asked to come here and give my point. I guess from my point, I look around this room and I see my brothers and sisters who I may not have served with at the time, and are probably a lot older than me, but I can guarantee we all have one thing in common other than being brothers and sister veterans. Are we not all going to be buried out there one day? Are we not all going to have our wives next to us? We're afforded that right. So what I don't understand is, who gives you the right to be able to take away our last place of peace and tranquility for a tax dollar? I respect progress. I respect the rule of law. But I also know what comes with these things. I've seen it in other countries. There's no way to mitigate progress. We all have to be able to just deal with it. But what about us? What about the ones who have sacrificed their lives over in Iraq and Afghanistan? I'm on the memorial squad out there. I buried these young men. And I'll tell you what, I thought that it was hard just burying them when they were there in country. I never knew that I would have to take that home. I never knew that I would have to deal with the perpetual PTSD that I went through, and watching my brothers and sisters killing themselves and ending up in that place that is going to be, what? Where's our peace and tranquility? When do we get to have a say? Because veterans have been overlooked in this country for far too long. Our voices used to mean something. The voices of this gentleman from World War II, the Korean War veterans, we used to stand for something. At one point, you trusted us above all others to protect and secure, uphold, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The same oath you took, the constitutional oath, every single one of us took. Every single one of us put our lives on the line at some point in our lives to defend the very freedoms that you exercise here today. Is it worth the tax money? Is it worth the disruption of the flow of traffic for the funerals? Is it worth that? Is it worth sacrificing our final resting place so the city can turn a buck? You'd be better off building homes for veterans. You have homeless veterans in your community. I've seen them. I've been out there helping them. I've served food to them over at the, I can't remember, the mission. What about them? They served you. When are you going to serve them? So I challenge you to think about that. I challenge you to look inward to your better selves and find the resources to help them. Because they didn't complain one iota when you called upon them to help you.
Thank you.
Just one quick thing.
I want to say to my husband for the last 40 years, today we celebrate 40 years, and I just want to tell the love of my life, happy anniversary. I got married when I was 6, so. But I just, thank you, and to all my Facebook family and friends who wished us both a happy anniversary. Thank you all so much. God bless, and God bless you veterans. What you do.
Just one thing. Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Both the mayor and I were fortunate enough to be able to work into our schedule this afternoon a presentation at Joliet Catholic Academy to their wrestling team, who had won the regional for the first time as a team in the school's history. They sent 7 people downstate into the state finals. They came back with 3 medals, and 1 individual, DJ Bettye, won the state for his 3rd time. He's a junior and has a chance to set a record and win it again next year. Also tonight, there was a robotics demonstration for the Joliet Township High School with the students, with mentors, have put robots and robot running software together, and they made that presentation. I'd like to congratulate all of them also.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for your service, and I hope everyone here, if you have not already done so, sign up for Honor Flight Chicago. I flew 3 flights as a nurse for that outfit, and it's a fantastic day, so please don't say, I'm not going. You must go, because it's for you. Everything is free, and it's about time that we're honoring everybody, and this has been going on for the last 10, 12 years. Now, the World War II veterans, it's you know, unfortunately aren't as many as there were in the beginning. But now the Korean vets and the Vietnam vets are able to go. So please, please, please sign up and go do that and get your due honor that's due to you, because it'll be the most wonderful day you've ever attended, and that's to honor you guys. Thank you.
I have a couple things. Number one, congratulations, DJ Bettye. Again, 3 state championships in a row, and we're all pulling forward for next year. Number 2, Saturday I was at a ribbon cutting at the New Redeemed Ministries at 1040 Rowell, a beautiful facility, Councilman Morris, in your neighborhood. It was, thank you for the investment in Joliet. Saturday, March 14th at St. Pat's Church, they're going to have their St. Patrick's Feastable, bagpipe mass at 4 o'clock. Corned beef and cabbage and shepherd's pie and dinners from 4 to 8. I'm sorry, from 5 to 8 after Mass. They'll have Irish dancers and local Irish history experts there too. So if you can make it, please support St. Patrick's Church. And then finally, I want to thank you our veterans who are here. Many of you are from out of town, so welcome to Joliet. It's good to see you here. Thank you for your service. That's all I have.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
What you do with the paper?
Hey, I got it.